Welcome back to Bookmark. My name is Lee, and my guest this morning is the author of Boundary Lab, Inside the Global Experiment Called Sport, Nandan Kamath. Welcome back, sir. How are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be here.
Nice to have you in the studios. You're a Bangalore-based lawyer and a lover of sport as well. Tell me more about your journey. Your alumni. I looked through your accolades, and I was just blown apart. Like, this is like a ideal lawyer, portfolio you have.
I don't know if there is an ideal lawyer, but
you have it basically.
Certainly, I'm a true blue Bangalorean, if I can say that. So I went to school in Bangalore. Went to St. Joseph's Boys High School, where I studied a little bit, but I played a lot. So hockey was my first sport, and then played cricket.
Right.
I took on cricket quite seriously. I actually played for the state.
Lovely.
Captained the junior teams, but then I came into this issue of whether to continue sport or take my studies a bit more seriously. At which point I'd gotten to the National Law School here also in Bangalore.
Lovely. That's quite an achievement, by the way. The NLS, cracking.
I think now it would be. At that time, perhaps a little bit easier to get into. I think I'm evidence of that. But it really became a turning point. Do I continue playing cricket in the sort of the seriousness with which I was, or whether to take on a career? And my parents thankfully left it to me. I did choose the academic route, and no regrets.
Were they happy about it? They were happy, I'm sure, right?
I think probably secretly happy. I mean, at that point there was no IPL. There was probably three or four people making a career out of cricket. And there were probably thousands of lawyers doing reasonably well. So. But I mean, I don't think they demonstrated any emotion at that point, which was fabulous for me, because it meant I had to take that decision, take it myself, and then sort of stand by it. And I think that really defined me, to sort of leave behind sport in a serious way. It was something I cared about and was good at. It really made me push myself and take my academics seriously, do it well, and really push myself on that, and sort of find my own boundaries and find my own sort of talents. Did reasonably well at law school, got a scholarship, went to the UK, studied in the US, worked there for a bit.
Before you skip through all that very quietly, you went through Oxford, you went to Harvard. How was that experience like?
Fabulous experiences. I mean, one is just the educational opportunity. But more than that, it was the exposure to different ideas, people, opportunities. And I'm a huge fan of giving people a chance to travel, see the world, and also experience different ways of living, different ways of thinking. And those classrooms were very unique, because you'd have an issue and people would approach it from such different angles, and it was opening to the mind, because you thought you had clarity and you thought there was one way of thinking about things, and then suddenly you'd be bombarded with 5 other completely legitimate ways of thinking about the same thing. And I think that really was mind-opening. Very different experiences at Oxford and Harvard, both treasured and valuable. I think Oxford was a little bit more theoretical and making you sort of philosophize about the world. Harvard was just getting you ready to be a top-class lawyer. Great experiences, and I look back on them fondly, and I think they've defined what I've been able to do, the scale of my vision and the desire to have an impact.
Amazing. And you came back to India after all that, right?
I studied for sort of my 3 years in the UK and the US together, and then I actually practiced law in California for 3 years.
Okay.
And at that point, I'd sort of given myself about 5 or 6 years to go and explore and sort of pick up skills, and I decided that I was going to be back home in Bangalore.
Lovely.
Like I said, true blue Bangalorean.
Good to have you back in Bangalore. Yeah.
So since 2006, it's been 17, 18 years now.
Nice.
Working on different ventures. I work in sport as a sports lawyer, but also have founded multiple organizations, one of which is Go Sports Foundation, where we support Olympic and Paralympic hopefuls. So with sort of support from CSR, from philanthropy, we raise funding and then sort of put it into the journeys of young athletes. So that's been a very satisfying journey.
Fabulous.
Sent a lot of people to the Olympics, won Paralympic medals. I think it's just incredible how much talent there is in this country.
Honestly, I think, and we are at the forefront of many things in India at the moment. Youngest population right now in the entire world. So
absolutely,
a lot to look forward for in the next couple of years from India's side of view. And I can't. But before we get into that, sport is a huge phenomenon in India, right? Cricket, we love cricket first of all. I think it's become our own religion. Even though football is the major, popular sport across the entire world, cricket is what we all love in India, right? Talk to me more about this book, Boundary Lab. the global experiment called sport. What are we talking about in this book?
Yeah, so I think this is really sort of moving from the personal to the professional and the public sphere. So I think for me, I gained a lot from sport. I felt it helped me to understand myself. It helped me to understand others. I mean, I went to the UK, already understood the Australian accent, the Caribbean accent, just from commentary. So it really opened up my world. And the question I started asking myself is, if it did so much for me, what could it do for a society, for a country like India?
Yeah.
And that's the question I try and answer. Because for a long time, sport has been seen sort of as a marginal sort of entertainment product, right?
Yeah.
It's what you do in the evenings when you don't have
anything else.
It's like a hobby.
Your parents said, have a hobby, have a sport. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, it's you go and play.
Correct.
It's what you do instead of meaningful things. But when I actually sort of delved into this, and I've been working now 18-20 years in Indian sport from very different angles, from the legal angle, from development, looking at athletes, looking at governance, and really lots of patterns began to form in my head. And I said, if I'm seeing this a certain way, I would love to communicate to other people why sport actually matters to us.
Okay.
And I think there are very simple things which I think that don't need much explanation, which is just sort of the value of work, the effort, and the product you get from it. But also the sort of the notion of building communities, friendships, what it means to sort of be from the similar tribe. And there's a tremendous amount of social value from building communities, building friendships, and what you can take from there. But also the other aspects of it, learning to win, learning to lose, creating safe spaces for losing, I think with dignity. I think there's a lot of evangelizing of victory, of success. But there are actually fewer and fewer for young people spaces to fail comfortably and fail safely. And I think sport plays multiple of those roles, both private as well as public.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I see sport as one mirror, which is just shows us our society in a very unfiltered way. Second is a window, which sort of helps us understand each other a little bit better. You open a window, you can look out that window, but people also look back in at you through that window, right? So it's for an opportunity for understanding. And I think third is really the opportunity for sport as catalyst to really bring change in the way we sort of live our lives, build our world. And there I think this book is really trying to approach it from the perspective of the way markets, morals, and sort of the rules of sport actually deal with lots of significant issues before they come out in our societies.
You mentioned this, yes. You talked about like gender as well.
Yeah, so for example, there are very few other places where you have to confront a difficult legal issue or a decision as much as we have to in sport, which is what's pretty unique about sport. Is that whether you play it at the club level or the World Cup level, the rules are have to be the same, uniform rule structures. So what happens is, if there's any difficult situation anywhere in the world, global sport has to deal with it. So just as an example, like the issue of who is male and who is female, there are very few other spaces where you have to build this strong binary, right? And it's not an easy question because I think gender isn't a binary any longer.
No.
But you're imposing a binary, sort of imposing that on a binary where sport is male sport and female sport.
Right.
So there are very difficult questions sport has to encounter. And in that sense, what I put down in this book is that sport is a laboratory. So lots of things, we're trying to find our boundaries. We're trying to find our social boundaries. We're trying to find the boundary between commercial value and ethics and values. We're trying to find various ways in which to live. So one, we're finding human boundaries. How far can you jump? How fast can you run?
Yeah.
And those are the obvious boundaries that sport is a laboratory for. But in my view, there are other aspects of experimentation. So we
social boundaries as well.
Social boundaries, values. What's the meaning of fairness in a particular context, right?
Right.
At some point, maybe commerce has to overtake a certain value. Because at the end of the day, it's about livelihoods of athletes. It's about sort of leading the way and building a commercial structure. And we've seen multiple great examples of how Indian sport has evolved. And in other ways, it's also just sort of a hopeful look on Indian sport, because I think there's tremendous potential left. Often India is called the sleeping giant of sport, but in many ways, actually, sport is the sleeping giant in India.
Right. True.
And if we can wake up that sleeping giant, it's tremendous potential for inclusion, for livelihoods, for just economic activity and growth. And in a city like Bangalore, just the way technology can transform sport, not just Indian sport, but global sport.
Right. Now, a lot of people feel like sometimes sports stars are kind of overpaid, right? what are your thoughts on that? Because they do get paid tremendous amounts of money through, sponsorships, advertisements, but at the same time, they're playing a sport. Like, it's just entertainment. Like, what's in it for me? I do this so much work. I'm a doctor, this and this, but I'm going to pay as much as them.
So I think this is actually one of the issues I do address in the book, which is, what is the role of an athlete?
Yeah.
So in many ways, they're private individuals.
True.
But their roles are as public officials in many ways. They're in a public sphere, pushing the boundaries on behalf of all of us.
Right.
And putting in all that effort to find human boundaries, right? And they actually are also ambassadors for identity. What does it mean to be Indian? And Abhinav Bindra or Neeraj Chopra wins the gold. Yeah. All of us believe that as Indians, we stand shoulder to shoulder, right? They have won, but what they also tell us is that all of us are capable of standing shoulder to shoulder, be it in business, be it in any other aspect of sort of global life.
Right.
And they play significant ambassadorial roles. But at the same time, I would like to see sport as also a much more democratized activity where everyone has a chance to be included, gain the benefits of sport. And I genuinely believe that sport is what I call a public good, which is there for everyone to enjoy. And it's not just about elite sport. And at no level do I suggest that sports people are overpaid.
Yeah.
But what I would like to see is actually a more balanced ecosystem of sport where you have elite sport, but there's also great ways to connect with the community, to get young people active, physically active and playing sport and building a really balanced sort of ecosystem for sport.
Schools as well do good sports programs, right? But some other schools as well, they don't really pursue that too much. How do we bring that as well back into the academic system as well?
Yeah, so I think schools are actually the epicenter of where the change is going to be.
Correct.
And in many ways, it needs a little bit of a change of mindset. So in the same way that literacy and numeracy are encoded into school, right? You don't leave anyone behind on on numeracy and literacy. Similarly, there has to be an aspect of physical literacy and just making sure everyone understands the value of sport, physical activity and movement. What our schools often tend to do is to sort of build a merit-based sports system.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're good, go to a sports team.
Correct.
And all the rest of you go and do literary activities, quizzing and other things like that. Yeah. So what I'd say, imposing hyper-competitiveness very early in a sporting journey and separating people based on whether you're good or not puts a tinge on sport which can be extremely exclusionary.
Right.
And it means that lots of people drop out for life. So they will at most take a evening walk. But sport, you'll see very few people in their 30s, 40s, 50s pursuing sport. And a lot of it is a reflection on the way sort of the early years were spent in schools, separating the sports people from the non-sports people. Right. And I would like to see schools look at this quite differently and really take an approach in the same way that they would to numeracy and literacy with physical activity and physical literacy.
Amazing. I think that's very, very important too, because at the end of the day, it is good for your health, it's good for your mind, it's also builds team, spirits as well, which is so important. My dad used to say, play a sport. I played basketball in school. I was bench warmer, but I was the best bench warmer out there. I made sure I was, cheering them on from the sidelines.
And that is no small task as well, right? So I think in life, as you move out, you're not always going to be in the A team in every single situation you're in. How do you take people along who may not be as talented as you?
Right.
And if you're not one of the talented ones, how can you still turn up and contribute? And I think those are sort of the lessons that sport teaches us that very few other sort of instruments or mediums can help with.
In fact, people keep saying life is a game, right? And I think the best game is to figure out how to put sport in this entire game of life as well. And to play with things, to learn from life and learn from sport is so important, because you in fact, they're so inspirational so many times. I keep watching Virat Kohli's interviews where he talks about how he didn't have a good couple of years and how he's come back to his prime form, as he calls it, and it's inspirational. It's really it imparts that inspiration. Okay, I have the fire inside of me. Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan. I've seen The Last Dance at least twice now. That's one of my favorite documentaries out there. You have any favorite documentaries that you like to watch, like sport-wise?
Yeah, I mean, I love anything to do with sport. Frankly, Last Dance was fabulous. I like the Beckham documentary.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of good stuff out there, like The Test, which was about the Australian cricket team. I think it's fabulous to see the inner workings of the mind, the body, what goes behind a sport, because the sort of what's on the surface is actually the performance of sport. But everything that goes in is actually what defines a person and process and all of the good stuff that happens in the dressing room is actually, I would say, even more interesting than what happens out on the field of play. So I love the behind-the-scenes types of documentaries.
One reason to read this book for all listening and watching this morning.
Yeah, I think one reason is just why should you care about what happens in sport? Many people stand on the sidelines and are happy spectators, but my belief is everyone should be a participant.
Right.
Whether you're playing or enabling someone else to play, I think we've had this movement about each one teach one.
Yeah.
Can everyone take responsibility for their own sort of sporting and physical activity journey? Or if they are not willing to, can they enable the next 50 young people to play? And I think I would love to inspire more people to believe in sport, invest in sport, and become participants rather than remain spectators.
Lovely, lovely. Before I let you go, I want to do a small little rapid fire with you.
Sure.
Which sport would you choose, okay? Tennis or football?
Football.
Football. Football or hockey?
Hockey.
Hockey or cricket?
Cricket.
Cricket, obviously. Who is the better sportsman according in your mind? Messi or Ronaldo?
I'd say maybe Messi.
Messi?
Yeah.
Is it because he won the World Cup?
That's a pretty good reason.
Okay, come to Indians, the Indian cricket team. Virat Kohli or Rohit Sharma?
Depends on what context completely. Because I love Virat Kohli's intensity and how much he cares. I just love Rohit Sharma's calmness and leadership qualities.
True.
So very difficult choice.
Choice. No, I couldn't choose myself. I thought, let me see if you could choose it as well.
We'll have to play a fantasy sports contest which forces you to choose.
Well, the book is called Boundary Lab, Inside the Global Experiment Called Sport by Nandan Kamath. Pick it up right now. And if you want to win this on my show this morning, answer this simple question. Which team is the best team in the Mega T20 League? I think we all know the answer to that. Which team is the best team and who are the official radio sponsors of team? You complete the sentence. You finish that. Hit me up on the WhatsApp number 888-943-943. That is 888-943-943. Nandan, a pleasure talking this morning. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Have a nice day. We'll maybe play a game of cricket one day.
Yeah, let's do that.
I am a horrible bowler, by the way.
I'd be happy to face you.
94.3 Radio 1.